Sean is a man who, with others like him, has created many things in the last 30-odd years. Created jobs, inspired hope, and helped communities to prosper. In building up strong businesses in Ballyconnell, Derrylin and Cavan, the knock-on influence in terms of jobs has been strongly felt in the Ballinamore and the surrounding areas. Suffice to say that the landscape of this community would be very different had it not been for the employment he created. Because of the ambition and endeavour of people like Sean, people didn't have to leave. Couples could stay and raise their families in the community that they themselves had been raised. The real and tangible results of this are that community groups could prosper, spin-off businesses were created, football clubs could field an extra team, scout troops had an extra patrol, schools could stay open, or maybe had an extra teacher. That little bit extra mightn't seem like a lot, but when you take it away, the effects are drastic. And now it is important that these contributions to community life are noted and appreciated, and it is for those reasons that Sean has been invited here today. And so without further ado, I'd like to call on Sean Quinn to open the 47th annual Ballinamore Family Festival.
Here we go. Good afternoon, folks. Mr. Chairman, committee, people of Ballinamore, I'm delighted to be here today. I think it's a great honour for me, considering all we've been through, and this great sense of support from the Ballinamore community that would invite me here today in the circumstances. I have a lot of people are shaking hands with me today, or at least appearing as if they want to shake hands with me today. I remember I came here 46, 47 years ago for the first annual festival down the road in the football pitch. And I wasn't getting any open handshakes, I was getting fist shakes at that time. And I see a boy across the road there, Sean Kavanagh. He was playing directly on me at that time. I haven't seen him much of him since, but maybe I might see him later on. And he was no soft touch. We didn't win any goal watches. We were promised goal watches. We got no goal watches, but we got a few beverages and we drank into the night and we had good fun. And we came back a number of years after. So Ballinamore was always a tremendous place for a bit of fun, good entertainment, and local hospitality. And then, of course, I remember coming to Freddy's up here, and I suppose I was less than half the age I am today. And I used to come to Freddy's, and John Cosgrove and a good few of the boys, Lord of Mercy on them, were about. And can you hear me okay, yeah? Yeah. So I used to get robbed there on a Sunday night when I used to come up. But I only thought I got robbed when you see what happened since. Okay, folks. I suppose just to say a few words about my view of where we are and where we have been and where we're going and what we're doing. I suppose I would start off by saying that if I'm to blame for any of it, all I can do is apologise for that. We certainly made mistakes, made lots of mistakes. There's no way we should have, or I should have, there's no point in blaming anybody else, only myself. There's no way that I should have invested so much money in Anglo-Irish Bank, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that they were what they were. And anyway, we done that, and there's court proceedings on that, so maybe I'd prefer to move on a wee bit from that and not get too involved in that aspect of it. But I do know that there's been a lot of blame attached over the last 4 or 5 years. Who's to blame for everything? Is that better?
Yeah.
There has been a lot of blame attached to what's gone wrong in recent times. And I myself, although I'm sure not too many people will listen to me, I have a very simple analysis of it. A lot of the problem that happened over the past 15 years, oh sir, okay. What happened over the last 4 or 5 years started off 15 years ago, when over the last 15 years, successive Irish governments, and I suppose it was, one of them was predominantly involved there, they run a company which is Ireland Limited, LPC, and they run that company, and their cost structure increased by 3 times inflation. Now, with my limited experience in business, no company or no country can do that. That's not feasible. So if you increase your costs by 3 times inflation, you're going to finish up with a major problem. If you do it for 1 or 2 years, you might manage that. If you do it for 15 years, it's just not on, and it just won't work. The other thing I think was a major contributor to the downfall of the country was the 18, I think it was, about 18, 19, 20, there's different arguments, there's different views on how many it might be, but 18, 20, different tax incentive schemes who were available for building houses, hotels, offices, whatever it might be, throughout various parts of the country. Oh, like that, yeah, okay, fine. I'll remember that for 10 seconds. So, I think that building all those houses, hotels, pubs, office blocks, or whatever it may have been, throughout hundreds of locations throughout the country over the last 15, 20 years, I think that, as well as running a budget deficit of 3 times inflation, I think that was crazy. I think that was the main source of our downfall. And I think it just fueled a bubble, and that bubble meant that when the cows come home to roost, or the birds come home to roost, or whatever you want to call it, when the country got into trouble in 2007, 2008, when the country got into trouble in 2007, 2008, the Irish government were running a budget deficit of 50%, so every pound that took in, they were paying out 150. Well, again, as I said earlier, that just wouldn't make any sense. I don't know any other company in the world, never mind country in the world, would pay out 150 for every pound you take in. So it was grossly insolvent very, very early on. Of course, when that happened, then the next problem was the banks. And the banks come under pressure. The banks came under pressure immediately after that. And I suppose when the banks came under pressure, all of the people that are supposed to advise and have an opinion or a view or an advice to the government or to the people of Ireland of what should happen in that case, all of them, the brokers, the economists, the auditors, the regulator, the central bank, the Department of Finance, the Minister for Finance, and the Taoiseach, all said there's no problem, our banks are sound, they're well capitalised, and the bad debts are very limited. And that went on for a period of 12, 18 months. Then, of course, what happened then, when it turned out that was not the case, that the country was in a mess, the country's budget deficit was in a mess, the banks were in a mess, then they turned around and changed the boards of the company, new management in the banks, new management in the regulator's office, and of course what happened next was absolutely extraordinary. The government, the Department of Finance, the regulator and the banks, rather than blaming themselves for what had happened over the previous 15 years, they blamed the victims. And I think a lot of people here in this audience will be the victims. And secondly, certainly I know I was a victim, and then my family. So what they started to do then was throw people out of their homes, throw them out of their businesses, they took them over, and they put guys in to run them. and they wouldn't run a chicken farm. I mean, absolutely, they had no history in running companies, and now they have destroyed a world of companies, including my own. For 35 years, we added 200 jobs on average per year for 35 years. We doubled our profits every 4 years once we got involved in the Anglo fiasco. Then we were put into administration. Then they took the Quinn group. Then they sacked the Quinns, and they paid off the management to make sure that they couldn't tell them the truth. So they couldn't go and sue, or they couldn't support the Quinns. They paid them off handsome figures. Got rid of all the people in our company that any information regarding fraudulent loans or share support. They sacked every one of them, along with all of our families. They give our family zero. They give the people, and rightly so, I don't begrudge them that, they give the people that was involved in the financial affairs of the company, they give them fairly handsome dividends on the basis they would keep their mouth shut. When the family raised the issues, and when the family issued legal proceedings against Anglo, then they put a team together that was second to none, led by the Attorney General, who was legal advisor to the government through all of that period when the country went burst. They also had people like John Bowe and Peter Fitzgerald, who have become prominent through the Irish Anglo tapes. They had them there to make sure that they would blacken the Quinns and put them in a position they wouldn't be able to sue the government, they wouldn't be able to sue Anglo, and they wouldn't be able to fight back. And I suppose they've done a hell of a good job on it. There's two questions I would like to ask regarding that. Two major questions. Did the regulator know in March 2010, when he put an administrator in the Quinn Direct, that the loans were illegal, or the share support, whatever you want to call it, did he know at that stage that the loans were illegal? If he didn't, why did he? If he did, why did he put in an administrator? That question has never been asked, and that question has never been answered. And that boy is about to fly out, like all the other boys have flown out already. He's about to fly out in the next few weeks. The second question I would ask is, did the Anglo board know that the loans and share support they had given to the Quinns 3-4 years earlier, did they know that that share support was illegal, it was a criminal offence? And if they did, why did they put a share receiver into a company in Derry Lynn they never loaned a penny to, they'll never get a penny out of? Does it not look very much like a cover-up? And is it a greater crime to cover up an illegal act than it is to perpetrate one? Because the people that perpetrated it at the time, they might have walked into a tsunami over a 3-4 year period. People came along after them and had time to read and look and watch and listen to all the history. They knew exactly what they were doing. And in my view, that's a far greater crime to go to take over a company and destroy a company, a community and a family, knowing that the loans were disputed and the loans were illegal. I think that's a huge issue. And there's one further question I would just like to ask on that, and that is that Alan Shatter put in new legislation in 2011 which said that it was a criminal offence to withhold information regarding white-collar crime. Well, if it's a criminal offence to withhold information, I have a feeling there's an awful lot of criminals up around that Dublin area. And I have a feeling they won't finish up where I finished up, in jail. think it's unfortunate the full story hasn't been told, and that Anglo and the government, the Department of Finance, the regulator, and between them, they were able to put a team of experts behind this whole scene to cover up this fraud, to cover up this, to cover up what had happened as regards these illegal loans, and to cover up taking charge of an insurance company which was the second most profitable in the country and had the highest reserves per claim of any company in the country, and then turn around to the Irish people and put it that we had no choice only to go over the Quinn Direct because Quinn Direct was a disaster. It never made money. It was always it was a disaster waiting to happen. While in fact all of the figures in front of them, every single figure in front of them, whether it's the number of claims outstanding, whether it's reserves per claim, whether it's whatever way you look at it, Quinn Direct was the best reserve company in the history of the state. And by the way, when even their own figures, forget about my figures, their own figures is saying that. That's not my figures. There's a blue book which is available to everybody, particularly the people here from the media. Hopefully they will start picking up on the real issues of what happened to the Quinn Direct, the Quinn Group, and why it happened. And it's ironic that the town I'm being made welcome in today is the only town that's produced anybody that's able to tell the truth on this matter, or able to bring the matter to a head, or able to bring it, at least bring some way to it, and that is Paul Williams. He and the Anglo tapes have done more to bring the truth to the people than all of the other politicians, all of the other media put together. And all I would say, Paul, is thanks very much for that.
Here, here. But you know what comes out for, they'll put him in jail.
Joey Smith tells me Joey Smith tells me that Paul is in the audience somewhere. He's knocking around, and if he is, maybe we've never had a pint together, so maybe we can change that later on this evening. To the people of Ballinamore, you're a wonderful people. Can't do much about the rain. You're a wonderful people, very genuine people. Family festival is a family festival, and a family, in my view, is what the Irish society is built on. And without family, you have nothing, because a lot of people that are involved in this issue here of ours, they have no respect for community or family. You people in Ballinamore have respect for human beings, for family, for people generally, and I applaud you for that. I don't like mentioning names because it's a dangerous thing, because there's so many. I'd say 99% of the people in Ballinamore would be supportive of me and my family. But there's one person I have to mention, and that's Patricia Gilheany. Patricia Gilheany has given enormous support to me and the family and the whole Quinn situation for the last 3 years. She's doing 50, 60 hours a week, absolutely unbelievable, and thank you, Patricia. To all the people of Ballinamore, but not only Ballinamore, to the people of Leitrim, Cavan, Fermanagh, and throughout the whole country, we have had a huge. When I was on my 9-week holiday up in Mountjoy, I got a good few letters, and they came from every county in Ireland. So there's a lot of people that, while they might be anti-Quinn in a lot of quarters, there's still a lot of people that feels that there's a bigger story, that over the last 35 years, I think they believe that Sean Quinn never took a penny didn't belong to him. I can verify that, and I think that will be proven. I never took a penny belonging to anybody, it wasn't mine. So thanks to all those people throughout the country, and particularly thanks to the different groups. There was a number of groups formed back 2-3 years ago when we got into trouble first. And they have travelled the length and breadth of Ireland trying to sell the Quinn case at their own expense. They've got nothing for it, only abuse. And when they attend meetings or dinner or dues or functions, or gatherings in Ballyconnell that were ridiculed as being, I don't know what word I should be using here, but anyway, it wasn't greatly appreciated. I think on a very general note, I think that one of the problems here is the government are now anti-Sean Quinn. The government for 25, 30 years before that were not anti-Sean Quinn. I think the government have been sold a pup. I think two governments have been sold a pup. I think the government of 07, 010 was sold a pup, and I think the government of 2011, 2013 have been sold a pup. I have absolutely no doubt about that. But the problem is they're stuck in a hole, and they don't know how to get out of it, and they don't have the guts, or the knowledge, or the common sense, or the ability to turn around and say, there's an injustice done here, we should be sitting around the table and we'll be sorting this out. We have made several gestures to say we are happy to come to accommodation in some way or other if it can be done. But nobody has the balls, to put it bluntly, to just go and do it. To Patricia, my own wife, who's here today, and my 5 children, I would like to express my deep gratitude to them. Their love and affection and support has been second to none, prior to the problems and since the problems. And we as a family, we will stick with it. We feel that there's a relentless search on behalf of the family to make sure that justice is done, and not only justice is done, justice is seen to be done. And that we have not only a right, but an obligation to make sure that that happens. Again, I would just like to thank everybody here today. I would like to thank all the people of Ballinamore, of Leitrim, the surrounding areas, and the various places for the huge support they've given me. It's not easy, but I think that in the long term, I think I'll be able to stand here. If this committee wants to invite me back in 2 or 3 years' time, I think that I'll be able to stand up here in 2 or 3 years' time and see we've been vindicated and that you people have been vindicated. Thank you very much.
I'd now like to ask Sean Quinn to please cut the tape and officially open the 47th Ballinamore Annual Festival. Thank you, Sean. Okay, thanks Sean for that, and thanks for that very candid speech, a very open-hearted speech. Apologies, as all broadcasters would say, profusely apologise for the amplification at the beginning of that there, but it wasn't Sean Quinn's fault, it wasn't my fault, it was Mick Flahavan's fault. He got his chance after a few minutes.